This is Marketing Jam, a show featuring the brightest minds in marketing.
Brought to you by Canada Post. Head to canadapost.ca/insight podcast for ideas to add value to your marketing.
All right, I want to welcome you to the next episode of Marketing Jam. I am so excited because we're going to talk about research, we're going to talk about insights. We have Diana, the founder and CEO of True Impact, and she is not only a data researcher, she is brilliant, she's on all sorts of councils, she's an advisor to all sorts of brands. She's also in the latest edition of Insight magazine, which in case you are not subscribed yet, has incredible articles, incredible insights on how you can use research to grow your business, whether you're a micro business, a small business, a large business. Insight magazine not only has some great articles and statistics and facts that are really helpful and relevant to marketing, but also has some really inspiring case studies of mailing campaigns around the world that are having a huge impact on growing businesses. So, Diana, thank you so much for joining us today. I want to welcome you to the show. And why don't we start off? How did you get into what you're doing?
I got into it quite organically. I started out as a big science nerd. I was fascinated by how people think, how people make decisions. So I studied neuroscience at the University of Toronto. I then started working in marketing. So I did digital marketing, analytics, different types of programs for large and medium-sized companies. And so after about 8 years within marketing communications, I kind of married my two passions into what was, back in 2012, Canada's first neuromarketing company.
Wow.
And so we've been providing services and products for the marketing, market research, and advertising communities, all rooted in neuroscience and biomeasures and lots of cool things like that.
Wow. So if I am a shop, I'm in Winnipeg and I have a cat sweater company and I'm trying to get more people to buy my cat sweaters, what's some of the insights maybe that your company has discovered?
Very simply put, we can help somebody with understanding where their customer is going to look. So what's going to get their attention, what emotion is going to be triggered, and how likely is that message going to resonate and convert to a behavior, to an action. So if you're having a website, you want to know where people are looking. You want to know what grabs their attention before where their mouse is going and what they click on, because you want to be intentional. So we help brands like that kind of take control of what's going to stand out first and foremost, and what type of emotion a customer or person should have with their brand.
Wow. So do you know that famous Wayne Gretzky quote? It's not just about knowing how to play the game well, but it's knowing where the puck is going to be. So you know where the marketer, where their customers are going to be. That's part of what you provide, like a little crystal ball for brands.
Yeah, ideally, that's exactly the goal. The goal is to be intentional and to be predictive, to not cross your fingers whenever you launch a campaign, and to add a little bit of humanity behind the customer metrics and bring emotion data into customer segmentation to really help improve targeting and maximize marketing yield.
Wow. Can you give me an example of maybe something you've done for a brand recently? I saw you did Burger King campaign. I've seen you do some others, but maybe something that you want to tell us about.
Yeah, for sure. We learned a lot about the physical experience and the impact of physical media on the brain. Having done a lot of work with Canada Post, we learned that the physical medium engages many more senses than just the visual medium. And so we got to dive deeper, even in a recent activation campaign, where we understand how does a postcard, a dimensional box mailer versus a social media ad, what type of emotions do they exhibit in the brain? And one interesting, top level finding is that you can have the simplest physical piece. It still elicits as much engagement from the mind as any digital communication. So people are going to remain interested in this medium for a long time because it taps into the way our brains are wired. So there's a mountain of evidence behind that, and it's quite interesting to see.
And could you say almost the same, but could you not say even more, because it affects like the smell, the touch, the taste even, maybe if you have a flavor on your postcard?
Yeah, and then as soon as you engage more senses, you are more likely to be encoded into memory, and that really helps a brand become familiar and become a habit, in the purchase cycle.
Because one of the things, I don't know if you've seen this Insight magazine, those that are just listening to audio, I have an edition of the Insight magazine that they covered the cover with, what do you call this stuff? Bubble popping stuff. My kids love this. They love to pop it, but I think we all love to pop it if we're really honest. But it just, you got to touch it, you got to feel it, you got to experience with it, and even actually pop the cover, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, and you never forget that cover. There's something very important about us having a tangible physical experience with the objects around us. This is really how we learn. And sometimes the things that seem destructive can actually be quite enjoyable. So think of the time when you go shopping and you have to tear one of those plastic bags to maybe bag your produce. It feels like it's a fun activity, even though it may seem a little bit, abrupt or what have you. But that is very enjoyable. And that's something that the human mind is triggered to. It creates an association between that act and that feeling.
Okay, so as a neuroscientist, I need to ask, I have a hypothesis, and I'm going to use your line, hypothesis that in this time, 2020, in a world that's so digitized and we're so focused so much on online, physical, tangible, experiential events, physical things in the mail will become even more valuable, even more important. Do you think that's true?
I think that's true, and it's all in the way that you do it. I think the younger generation may have a lot of emails in their inbox, but many times they don't get a lot of mail. If you've ever seen a 13-year-old, jump up and down when she gets her Starbucks Gold card, that's something that an email cannot duplicate. That feeling. Physical is something that is going to remain top of mind as an area of activity or investment for many brands. I feel like it needs to work in concert with text and online and a mobile app, and it all has to feel fluid, like it's coming from the same brand.
So if I'm, a cat sweater company in Winnipeg, and I can't, say, afford to hire you, I don't have the budgets of Burger King, could I get some of this data knowledge from my Google Analytics, Facebook Insights, data that's available to me right now?
Yeah, you can gather a lot of behavioral data, so you can see what people did, you can see where they clicked, and kind of what the general user flow is. If something grabs your attention and you feel like something needs to be corrected, you want to start before the behavior, and you want to do a little bit of research or testing, if you will, on your web page to determine what is grabbing their attention for them to go click on something. So what a lot of companies do is they'll use some form of eye tracking, and there's many types out there. Then they'll pair it with maybe a Hotjar type tool where they see where people are clicking. And that tells them where they look and what they do to better connect the dots all the way through conversion. So the more upstream you can go with understanding the values and emotions that drive that behavior, the more likely you are to be able to affect that behavior.
The great thing too about Google Analytics and the Google Goals feature within Google Analytics is that they're both free features for anyone to use.
Right. Yeah, and so that's definitely accessible. It's information that every marketer has, basically no excuse not to use.
And you mentioned Hotjar. Do you know what the costs are about that, or for a single website?
Oh, I can't speak to the Hotjar pricing. I know it is fairly affordable, and there's a free option for those that want to try it with a limited number of tests or visits. And so that is a tool that tracks where your mouse is going and kind of what people are clicking on. If you, for example, are before that stage, say you haven't built a whole website yet, or maybe you have a couple of ideas in mind for what it should look like, and you have 2 iterations before you go and build a whole website, you can use a tool like predictive eye tracking to determine where attention is most likely going to land and decide, does that meet my marketing objectives, which is a very important step. A lot of times we are removed from the goal when we are designing something because it's different people, different departments. So a designer may feel something is beautiful, but a marketer may look at something and think, does it achieve my intended objective? Does it drive people to what I want them to do? So you marry those 2 goals and you pick the right version that speaks to your marketing objective, and then you go and build a whole site, and then you track with a tool like Hotjar, right? So
That's
there's
awesome.
things you can do before that as well.
And tell me about yourself. What do you read, or where do you kind of spend your time so that you can stay on top of what's happening in trends today?
Yeah. So I love podcasts. One of my favorite recently is called B2B Growth. In my role within True Impact, I am responsible for growing the business. So I love to hear what tactics and strategies other companies are using to drive conversion to their B2B, often SaaS platforms. I love that one. I love Marketing Jam. I've listened to a couple of episodes as well. I feel like it's really conversational, but it also gets to the tactical, like gritty, aspects of marketing. And in terms of books, I mean, in addition to the neuromarketing books, I made some notes. There's this one that I really like. It's called Lost and Founder by Ran Fishkin is very interesting because he speaks about a company that started as pure services, doing marketing, search, and a number of other services like that. And then he moved into a platform model. And I also like, this is a classic with the tech community. It's called Getting Real. And it's all about how to build web apps, basically. So it's, my interests are with the human sciences and technology and business.
That's awesome. And are you an iOS or an Android person?
I'm on a Mac right now doing this podcast, but my phone is a Samsung.
Nice.
So, yeah, I'm both.
And do you have apps that you just love on your phone that you kind of use every day?
Well, I feel like, the calendar app is critical. I can't live without it. I mean, it's I'm a parent as well. So I also love this other app called Life 360. It makes it really easy to coordinate pickups, drop-offs with my spouse. Let me think. I don't know, just some of the regular, like Spotify and all the other ones are kind of, I try to keep it light. I try to do as much work as I can on my computer, and otherwise I would just get sucked into my phone and spend all my time there.
Yeah. So as someone, neuroscientist, marketer, how do you feel about, having children? How do you feel about the future for our children and those people that are able to market to them even smarter, sharper, even, using more of these insights? Do you think that's a great thing? Do you think that's a bad thing, and why?
I think it's a good thing. I mean, it's inevitable that marketers are going to continue finding better tools to reach people, to reach them at an emotional level, or to reach them when they are most vulnerable. I feel like with that will come also a lot of education around how to be a wise consumer. We really need a lot of financial literacy in schools. We need to teach people the difference between wants and needs. And how to delay gratification and not do a lot of impulse buying, because retailers are getting much better at getting you when you're tired, when you're exhausted. You don't want to make too many decisions. You just want to grab and go. So being aware of your mental state, I think, comes hand in hand with this conversation. On one hand, yes, brands are getting better, and we're all part of an ecosystem that helps brands get noticed and trigger emotion. But on the other hand, people are also becoming much more aware of their mental states and, their overall understanding of what brands are trying to do.
What's something that every business, solopreneur, micro business, large business, can keep in mind for 2020 when it comes to neuroscience and marketing? What's kind of one tip that you'd want to leave people with?
Yeah, well, people act on how they feel, not necessarily what they say. So if you don't have any form of emotion-based data to add to your customer segments and to help with, CRO in general, you are missing a big portion of consumer insights in general. And the brands that do this the best really understand that customers are more than data, that they're people. And as soon as you understand the humanity and the biology behind why some things grab attention, why are some things going to trigger an emotion with a certain group of people, the more of that you can have in your arsenal, the better you're going to be at connecting with that group of people. So I think you're going to see a lot more push towards customer experience and human understanding in general.
Diana, I need to know, what's the last piece of mail you got recently that you remember and thought was really interesting, provocative, and kind of left an impression?
Yeah, it's a very simple one. It was a letter that looked like most other letters, but when you open it, it was written in a very conversational tone. It just read something like, "Listen, I know you get a lot of mail, and I appreciate your time." Like exactly how we speak is the way it was written, with very simple words. And I appreciate you even opening and reading this, and we have this offer. We're not going to keep sending you stuff, but if you're interested, I'm here to help. No pressure. Like it was just very kind of human type of writing. So I felt, that made me smile, because it's like, okay, this came from a human. That's good.
That's really awesome. So I thank you so much for being on the show. Anything else you want to leave with people, and as far as what you do and kind of the worlds that you spend in? Any other advice you'd leave with brands and marketers out there?
I feel like we covered the most important aspects. I think the brands that are going to focus on improving the customer experience are going to be more interested in this. And some brands are they're jumping on this earlier than others. But at the end of the day, it's for the benefit of everyone. When a brand is not cluttering the market with messages that don't resonate, it doesn't help them. They're wasting a lot of money. And when people are being bombarded with messages that don't speak to them, don't stick, that creates a lot of waste as well. So there's a lot of optimization that can be done still.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today on Marketing Jam, brought to you by Canada Post. Don't forget to subscribe to a physical magazine that they will mail to your office or your home every quarter, full of inspiration, insights, ideas. Thanks again for joining us today on Marketing Jam, and we'll see you next week on the Jam.